From Tidal Health Group, this is Health Impressions, where we break down healthcare marketing strategies for consumer brands with industry experts. I'm your host, Bryan Cush. Welcome, Saul. Really excited to speak with you. It's really funny, even on the pre-show notes, that I was just like, man, how do I not know this guy already? So I'd love you to just introduce yourself, kind of where you specialize and who you serve.
Yeah, Bryan, hey, I agree. I'm so glad we're finally connecting. And it's a pleasure to be here with everyone. Yeah, my name's Saul Marquez. I am the founder and CEO of Outcomes Rocket. We are a company that works with healthcare leaders, brands, and organizations, and we help them maximize their impact potential in the market. Many organizations show up and they're very tactic focused. We help them take a step back and really understand what's your target, what's your timeline, and why is it important to you, and then fuel those targets with the right tactics, because tactics are the noise you hear before the war is lost, and we don't want that to be the case for anybody with us.
I love that. And I was listening to a conversation with you, and I like not to immediately jump to someone else, but if you don't know Jerry Hobbs, who's like a 40-year veteran in brand marketing, he hammers in me this always form before function. And I feel like the two of you are kind of saying the same thing in different ways, but I love that.
Yeah, no, for sure. That's spot on. That's spot on. And look, background, parents came to this country from Mexico. I grew up in healthcare. So, 17 years, different medical device companies, wearing sales and marketing hats. But I got to this point where I was done, frustration. Like many folks listening, maybe tired of your ideas getting put on shelves, tired of having to deal with the red tape, and ready for something better. And I remember making that call, Bryan, just like my heart was beating out of my chest. And I was making that call after 7 years of being at an organization, telling my boss I'm leaving and I'm going to start a new company. That leap of faith, the night before, talking to my wife, she understood, man. She knew where my head was, where my heart was. She grabbed my hand and she says, babe, we're going to do this together. And that leap of faith is never easy, but when you're clear about it, it becomes easy. It's almost like you're pulled, right? And so for me, I was pulled to something more than just climbing the ladder. And we're on a mission today to help 5,000 organizations, brands, and leaders, help them succeed in healthcare, because 50% of companies fail at 5 years and 97% fail at 10. And that shouldn't be the case if your organization, company, practice is doing things to transform care and make people live longer, happier lives.
No, I love that. And you've talked about this before, and what I think interests me so personally is that it's not my background and strength, that you recognize, whether it was at the time or now in reflection, your corporate experience actually gave you a leg up going into entrepreneurship. Can you talk a little bit more about that versus the individual that just kind of dives into entrepreneurship?
Yeah, it's been really interesting, Bryan. I'm glad you asked me this question. I've done a lot of work. I believe that if you're going to grow, you got to invest in yourself. And I've invested a lot in myself, in our business. And one of the things, well, you mentioned OS, right? Like before we started. I did an experience similar to that. I put our agency through a grueling process. It was 8 months. It's cool because we were around other, 7-figure kind of businesses. The funny thing is, when we did it, we weren't at 7 figures, but when you surround yourself with others, we quickly got there, and it was just like, wow. Right. And so this group that I was a part of is called Cardone Ventures. But what I quickly started learning is that a lot of the other entrepreneurs around me didn't have that corporate experience. And I started realizing, oh my gosh, this stuff was actually really useful. This idea of we have to meet quarterly to talk about our talent and where are the gaps is not normal. Like, people don't actually do that, right? we call it a 9 block. And the block has your people and where are they in the high performers, low performers, who needs attention, and so understanding P&L and different things like that, right? It certainly was a background that I didn't expect was going to be a leg up, and now it is. And so that's been pretty cool. And the good news is that if it's not a strength of yours, there's an opportunity for it to be a strength if you find the right mentors. And the 4 M's are model, mimic, master, and multiply. So if you're able to find the right mentors, model them, mimic them, the best way to do it is oftentimes just to get into a paid engagement with someone, because the best is like, hey, we're in this together, right? And so we get into this engagement together, we learn from each other, and then just great things happen. I did this, for example, when I first started my podcast, right? I invested some dollars into a program. This guy, John Lee Dumas, he's an Entrepreneurs on Fire. I'm in Puerto Rico now. I actually learned about Puerto Rico from him. I was at his house for 2 days because I wanted to know, how do I build this podcast that is going to add value to my intended end listener, right? He showed me the blueprint, and I did it, right? And so now with business, I go to the best. And so Brandon Dawson, who leads Cardone Ventures, his last thing, he exited his business, sold it for a couple $100 million. I said, okay, cool. This guy's got a track record. I want to know what he did, how he did it. Model, mimic, master, multiply. So if you're willing to invest, find those right mentors, your chances to succeed go up exponentially, and also the time frame in which you do it, you make it tighter, right? And you're able to effectively make it happen. So yeah, that's kind of like my philosophy on it.
No, I love that. I'd love you to expand on why healthcare.
Oh yeah, why healthcare? Wow. Well, it actually started with, I was 5 years old. And, if you remember back in the day, the jungle gyms actually used to be dangerous, and there was like a cement ground underneath. Now everything has like rubber, or like, those plastic or the rubber chips or whatever. You just fall and you're okay. Well, my cousin was at the top, like he was older than me. He was like 6-7 years older than me, and he was going to the top and he was jumping off. And I thought it was the coolest thing. Like, I just wanted to do it. So I go up, and instead of falling forward, I fall back. And it was terrible. I was at the hospital. I ended up pretty beat up. I got out the next day with some stitches. But I remember driving away from the hospital in awe. As the hospital sign got smaller, my heart for healthcare grew bigger. And I said, wow, man, these people like saved my life. They didn't technically save my life, but they helped me, right? And as a kid, I thought they saved my life. So I always had this like admiration and respect for clinicians, doctors, nurses. And then it kind of got lost. It kind of got buried, right? And I got into this track of communications. I was a history major in college because I tried communications, and then I didn't like it. But I got sucked into the ancient Greeks, Aristotle and his ethos, pathos, logos. The Aristotelian persuasive appeals. So I'm like I just became a student of that. And then in college, I went to a career fair where Stryker was there, and that's where it all came back. Like, it just came rushing back to me. These people were talking about all the things they're doing in medical technology, and it just took me back, and I'm like, this is it. Like, I need to be in this. There's nothing else but this. And so I was able to, break into the medical devices field, and haven't looked back since. Now with the marketing work that we do, everything we do is healthcare. If it's not, we have friends that do non-healthcare things. We send stuff to them for that. So that's kind of the story about why healthcare.
No, I appreciate it. I think it's always important to understand the human and the why. And then even as we kind of shift gears, like, you really are known for this kind of category of brand marketing and health tech. And then you even start to talk about the elements of brand marketing. Can you start to peel the layer on that a little?
Oh, for sure. A lot of people think brand is soft, but I will tell you that it's performance. And so if you really start to think about your brand from a performance perspective, that brand house, what is it that you're promising to your customers? What are the unique things that you do as a brand, as a business? Those pillars, like if you could hone them into three pillars that really differentiate you in the market, you're able to not only get new business, but you're able to also retain customers, and you're also able to leverage your reputation in the market for additional growth. And so we could definitely dive into some of these different elements. But at the end of the day, it's conversions, it's retention, it's reputation. And if you think brand is just fluff, you're missing out.
Yeah, dig into that a little bit more. It sounded like there was a misconception or maybe just like an action in the market that you labeled around people perceiving brand as soft. Like, what does that mean that you're saying that they're either doing or thinking incorrectly?
Yeah. So, you know, I would tell you that we talked about tactics and strategy, right? And so when you think about marketing, no matter what marketing you do, it falls into three pillars. It's either owned, earned, or paid media. That's it. If anybody tries to tell you there's anything else, they're trying to sell you something, period. And so now the thing that precedes the three pillars of marketing execution is strategy. And under this strategy is where brand sits. It's where your personas sit. It's where your targets sit. It's where your mission and vision sit, right? And so if you're not fully dialed into that brand, everything falls apart when you go to execute. But if you're crystal clear on what your brand is, many people think, and by the way, I was one of those people. I was one of those people that I'm not going to waste my time on this like fluffy idea of brand. Like I have a logo and I have a company name. Okay. So like I have it. Now I'm going to focus on execution, sales, getting people what I sell. But I slowly realized that brand is actually about performance and it's about differentiation. So when you look at this brand house, you start with the promise to your end customer. That's your statement. Then you get to your attributes. It's sort of like it's a bit different than your values, like your corporate values or your company values. The attributes are those things that are related to the outcomes that you're able to help your customers achieve. And then from the attributes, you go down to your pillars. And those are the performance metrics that you're able to help customers with. So like for us, it's like, hey, look, marketing, but like with conversions, because we understand that if your marketing doesn't have ROI, you're just putting stuff into the ether. And so what are your three things? And once you have that crystallized, boy, let me tell you, that's where brand becomes clear. It becomes powerful. Your messaging becomes consistent, because guess what? I love hearing people say things like email's dead. And that's just because you're very tactic focused. The reality is email is a phenomenal tool. But guess what? It's you got to be doing things omni-channel nowadays if it's going to be effective. So email could be 3 to 4 impressions that lead somebody to click on a LinkedIn ad for you to check something out. And if your messaging is consistent across your email, your social, your podcasts, your articles that you're doing through PR, it becomes like, I know this person, I know this company, I could trust them.
No, I love that. It really sounds like you're just categorizing like an opportunity loss. Like when you're soft on your brand, you're missing this kind of bloodstream connection to everything else that brand should be doing.
100%.
I'd be curious how you think about, so it sounds like an intended or unintended consequence when you're very clear on the performance of your brand is you're causing exclusion. But then
Yes.
you also, I can't say you coined it, but I've definitely heard you talk about the riches and the niches which is another exclusionary action. So how do you think about that in the sense of either people that maybe push against that or how you measure that success?
If you speak to everyone, you speak to no one. And so I think a lot of entrepreneurs are afraid that if they exclude, they're going to lose. But the reality is, when you exclude, you're actually saying yes to somebody very specific. And so I love that you went here, Bryan, because before you hit the tactics of own, earn, and paid, you got to get clear on your personas. And when you're super clear on your personas, or archetypes, or avatars, whatever you want to call them, right? It's a persona is a very clear description of your ideal customer, their pain points, the things that they're after, common objections that they would have for your proposal, ways you could share information with them. And so if you're very clear about who those folks are, then it becomes really comfortable to say, hey, we only serve businesses doing $1 million or more, or they've raised at least 5 million or more in venture capital. That's true for us, right, at Outcomes Rocket. But what I always do is say, hey, but if that's not you, don't worry. Like, we put a lot of content out there that can help you. We actually give away our best stuff in the media interviews that we do. So check us out anyway, and learn from what we're up to. And then when you get to the point where we could work with you, then you're just like, you already know, like you're ahead of the game on the stuff that we do, how we do it. And you're just leaning on us for help with execution or with insights. So it actually like is uncomfortable at first, but you're saying yes to yourself. And here's what happens, actually, self-selection occurs. So now you're proud. Like if you say this message and you're at the point where we'll work with you, and obviously there's people that are bigger, right? There's the $1 billion ones, but our ideal niche is what I just shared with you. And if you find that what I just said is you're going to want to get in touch with me because you self-select into what I just told you who we work with. So you actually, by having clarity, it's your intention. And when you so like the law of attraction, right, it starts with the law of intention, followed by the law of action that leads to attraction. So you're actually, by being clear about who you work with, you're actually bringing them into your life and inviting them. You're putting it out into the universe and they're coming to you. And it's cool how it works. Like it actually, like when you own that and you get over the doubt, it starts to work for you.
Yeah, there may be some confirmation bias on this side because we are definite advocates of verticalization. And I'd say even like big proponent, fan of Corey Quinn, if you know his concept of deep specialization as well.
Oh, I don't. No, that's interesting. Corey Quinn?
Yeah, he was a past CMO of Scorpion Healthcare, and now he's out on his own and really pushes the concept of deep specialization. I'd be curious your thought on like, where do you stop? Like, how do you know you're not too far deep? Where like both of us are in healthcare, and even I think we pushed a level down that because healthcare is broad. But how did you land into, I think it's health technologies, kind of the category you sit in?
Yeah. So we mostly serve the health tech, med tech, and pharma space. And I think like the visual for this, Bryan, is like you're at a coffee shop, and you and I are at a coffee shop, and our listeners with us, they're sitting right next to us. So there's 3 of us, right? And we're just chatting. We're having a really great conversation. And we're talking about marketing for healthcare. And it's really interesting. Like what we're talking about is like, whoa, no way. Like there's opportunity here for us, which, by the way, that's the intention of our conversation today, that you take something away from our conversation that helps your business grow, that helps you think differently in a way that's going to help you get beyond a block that might have been holding you back for a very long time. It doesn't have to anymore. So like now we're at this cafe and there's somebody next to us that's not healthcare, right? But they come over to chat with us because something we said was interesting. I think what ends up happening is you've got to be open to opportunities. So like for me, it's like if that person maybe was not healthcare, but maybe they were in a business that sold to pharma, which we currently don't help. It's still healthcare, but because I was very selective in healthcare, I'm open to talking to other people that are in healthcare wanting to achieve results within healthcare marketing. So I'm open to chatting with them about it. And so one of the things about healthcare, a guest on my podcast once said, was it's not a vertical, it's a horizontal. It touches everyone and every organization. So it's like maybe there's an opportunity for your business to get into healthcare. I'm interested in that conversation because that's the space where we play. So I feel like be open to the idea of doing more.
No, and I appreciate that. What I hear was really funny. Curious your response is that level of niche and clarity not only helps you identify then who your ideal client or partner is, but it also then identifies who are the companies that you could work with. Like a simple example is I look at you and I go like, how did we not know them? Like we're in the
I'm
category
the
of healthcare. We don't touch pharma. We don't touch med tech. And that's actually like a definer for us that we go, look, we just sit in the health services field. We actually want brick and mortar care delivery. And that goes, okay, we're very clear in who we work with, but then it's very easy for us to look left and right and go, well, who are the partners that we should be working with or referring to as well?
I love that, man. Yeah. And I feel the same way. I'm glad we're finally meeting. I don't know what took us so long.
Probably my stubborn ego. I don't know.
That's funny.
Yeah, I'd love to start to dig in a little bit on, I think one of the most overlooked areas of brand is retention. And I'd love for you to start to peel the layer a little bit on how you think about using brand from a retention level.
Yeah, that's really great, Bryan. Thanks for that. So with retention, it's huge. So, you landed your customer, you're serving them, they're happy, but what else are you doing, right? To help them stay in love with you. And so that's where brand comes in, go beyond just delivering results and help them continue to understand why they chose you. And so when you're clear about your brand, you're able to, again, go back to the strategy side of things and understand your brand pillars. Hey, like we are clear about ROI. And here's one way we were able to help this other customer. And by the way, I want you guys to meet each other. Have you guys thought about introducing your customers to each other when you're at a conference? Doing a what you would do for prospects, get them together for a dinner, right? Why don't you get your customers together for a dinner and remind them at the table why you exist, why you do what you do. I got to tell you, like, I just did this. We were in Vegas last week. We had 10 of our customers at a dinner and they were like, hey, do you mind if I invite this other person? I think they could be a great client of yours. Yeah, bring them. Hey, do you mind? I'm like, yeah. So I had to increase the reservation to fit more people. But that's because they were reminded, right? Like, we're all in on this. We want to celebrate you guys. We want to introduce you to each other. And then at the table, we just kind of went back into why we do what we do, why we appreciate them. It literally took 3 minutes because it wasn't, I don't want to have you guys here to like hear me speak. I want you guys to just enjoy yourselves. But that little snippet of, we're here because we're ROI driven. We believe in founders, that founders have contributions to make to society, and I mean, they just they were reminded and they thanked us for a good time. And, retention is a huge part of how your brand can help you. Email nurturing, for example. So let's talk about owned. Owned is everything that you own. So your email, your socials, your website, your SEO efforts, your podcast. Maybe you're doing webinars. Maybe you have your own event. That's everything that you own. Within your own pillar of marketing, if you infuse your brand strategy and don't forget about your marketing efforts, retention responsibilities, you'll be able to put together some really sharp email campaigns that add value to your customers. And what I go to is the 7 promotes. So the 7 promotes are the things that you could use externally to prospects, but also to customers. It's why you like what you do, why you do it, who you do it for, your value proposition, your who should work for you, like why should people work for you. Then it's teaching your people the 7 promotes, and it's just like it's so incredible, man. Like when you do this, and it's methodical, right? Like you go through each one of these. It's a reminder. People forget, they're busy, and if you remind them why they chose to work with you in the beginning, beyond the results you're getting them, then they'll stay with you much longer.
Yeah, I'd be curious if you've experienced this or you recognize it. Maybe it sounds like it can turn into other entrepreneurs, but like what I hear in a lot of that too is like breaking down these kind of like self-constructed barriers where like I feel like I remember early on there was almost this fear that like, oh, like I can't tell this customer that I have another customer. Like I'm creating this false barrier that they think
Yeah.
we're working for them 150,000 hours a week, but it's such this kind of this self-constructed fear that no one ever really put in place. So I'd be curious if that resonates with you, or if you've seen that in entrepreneurs that kind of just like make this assumption that creates an unnecessary barrier.
Yeah, man. We do it to ourselves. We do it to ourselves. When I first got out of the corporate gig and got into, the agency full time, man, I was self-sabotaging myself with thoughts that were holding me back. In fact, I had to dig deep, and I realized that I was telling myself, hey, man, if it doesn't work, don't worry. Like, you could always be an exec again. Like, I was just like, and that little voice inside of me that was holding me back. That's the importance of reflection and journaling and really like understanding yourself and really being honest with yourself. Like, dude, I got to this point where I'm like, something's holding me back and I don't know what it is. And after a lot of thinking, and reflection and journaling, I realized that that's what it was. It was this voice saying, almost wanting me to fail so that I could go back to my comfort zone as an executive. Oh man, like it's just so deep, right? Like I had to really think through that and bust through it. On the example, and we all deal with this, we all deal with this. And so we owe it to ourselves to have that thinking time. And for me, I structure it every Friday morning. I get up early in the morning before my family. And if I try to fit it in daily, I can't daily sometimes, but my Friday, I have like a 35-minute block where it's a must. Like I always have a Friday journal entry where I just do my reflection on wins, on losses, on opportunities, things that I could do better, priorities. And during those times, I'm able to kind of just be with myself because it's so hard, man. We have customer demands, we have market demands, we have the team, we have all this stuff. But on the point that you shared around, like you're my only customer, this is where the importance of creating a great team and promoting your team. One of the promotes is promote your team. When you promote your team and you trust them and you're able to duplicate yourself through them, sometimes your customers like your team more than you.
I would say sometimes, most of the time.
Right? Like, it's just like, dude, why are you on this call? Like, where's Rachel or where's Corinne or Daniela? Like, why are you here? And it's great when you get that. And when you can give your customers a confident kind of understanding that your business is not just you, it's the team you're building. If they also have successful businesses, they know. you know, and they're gonna say, wow, man, I love this person, or actually I'm not a fan. So that's feedback, right? And so it's definitely those little things that could hold you back. And if you feel like something's holding you back, and you're honest with yourself about it, take a little time to think about it. You know, maybe go by the ocean or take time away from what you've got going on, and do a little writing. Get the circles from out of your head and put them on paper, and then all of a sudden things start to become clearer, and those blockers become apparent. So then it's up to you, right? And that's the 4 A's. So the 4 A's is you acknowledge that there's a problem, you accept that that problem is there, then you act to fix it. And when you realize that your actions are starting to work, you attack it. You go all in to make sure that it's not holding you back anymore. And I'll tell you, man, I sort of did this little ritual for myself where I executed Executive Saul. Like I sentenced Executive Saul to death, and Executive Saul no longer exists because Entrepreneur Saul is here to stay. And so, and I accompanied that with trigger music. So there's a song that actually, so I don't know, man, like I'm not going religious on this. There's, Saul became Paul, and so there was a transition, right? So there's this song by Bach, and it's a beautiful piece, and it's basically the evolution of Saul to Paul. So I cemented it with that song, and I made it real for myself that I'm owning who I want to be. So if you can do that, when you can mix visualization with anchor music into your body, like into your nervous system, it's so powerful, man. Like it took me a few weeks, but then it's just like, wow, that symbolic execution, the entry of this new me. And I felt like that was probably one of my biggest wins in, with those blockers that you call, right? Because they're real for all of us.
No, I appreciate it. It's not where I thought this call would go, but I'm laughing. I'm always happy to go into like mindfulness, meditation, neuroscience. Like all I hear with you is this, like, you are not your thoughts. I mean, that's like the basics of meditation, of like your brain will kind of flutter. Yeah. You will flutter these thoughts, and we immediately think that, oh, because I had that thought, that is me. But you have to create that distance between you and your thoughts. And that to me is what journaling, that is what writing allows, to put that thought down and then have the time to be retrospective on it and go like, does that thought serve me or does it not? Like I have that choice to make, not just become that thought.
I love that. What's your philosophy on that, Bryan?
Yeah, it's funny. You talk about, I read a ton of Stoic philosophy. And
you do?
And nice. in your moment of that, like, oh man, I was self-sabotaging, saying like, oh, I could always go back to being an executive. Like I had that out. You're essentially, like you're saying, you're almost telling yourself to fail.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of power in that visual of like, a lot of the Stoics talk about live the life you fear. And like, we're going to get really global in the sense, like you and I have already succeeded in life. Like what is true? Like if everything failed in the truest sense, like what would my day really look like? You'd probably still be sitting at the beach in Puerto Rico, like eating fresh ceviche. That's the worst your day literally could get. And I was like, that's a very freeing thought when you can actually sit with that and understand the worst is not the thing that you were really fearing.
I love that, man. That's cool. I didn't know you were reading Stoic philosophy. That's pretty awesome.
Yeah, my undergrad was actually in history too.
What kind of history was it?
I was very, very confused, and I was kind of all over the place. So I'll just leave it at that. Totally different podcast. I changed my degree like 3 times. I went to 5 different colleges in 4 years, and I'll leave it at that.
All right, that's fair. That's cool, man. You're a history major too. I love that.
Yeah, you talk a lot about like I know we've talked about we always need to have strategy before tactic, but I love to zoom in and out too. And whether it's through the
Yeah.
lens of maybe outcomes rocket, or maybe there's client examples that come, is there like these light bulb moments that you see the connection in the tactic when the right strategy work is done? Like, is there any good tactical examples where you can make that throughput?
Oh, big time, big time. And it's always very rewarding when you could connect the dots and look in the rearview mirror and say, this is it. So there's a lot of things like, let's talk about a challenge, right? Like rather than go straight to the tactic, let's talk about challenge. And one of the most common challenges in marketing is website conversion optimization. Like that's a fancy way of saying people visit my site and I'm getting a very low percentage of leads. And so that's a very common struggle that a lot of businesses have and practices too, probably, right, Bryan?
Yeah. I mean, the quick side story I'll tell too, I think you're going to, and I've become curious, is like, I can't count the amount of times we talk to someone that we're potentially going to engage with, and they go, we have this new website, we have this new landing page asset, we have this new ad. Look how amazing it is. We talked to all our executives and all our sales team, and they gave us the feedback and the language to create this asset. And then we go, well, when did you talk to your actual clients and your customers? And they said, no, we didn't do that. We decided it internally.
Yeah. Exactly, right? And so you're not talking and back to the right, it goes back to this. So Bryan, great example on the, piggybacking on the example of conversion optimization. So you're getting the language from the wrong stakeholder. So like you're not thinking about your persona in this case. Oftentimes what happens, you're probably thinking, man, maybe, and in our space, right, it's like product market fit. Like, dude, you don't have a product market fit issue. It's a message market fit issue right now. So if we take a step back to Bryan's point, and he hit the nail on the head where I was going with this, is it's what language are you using? Are you really identifying with them? Are you when they get to your site, are you entering their stream of consciousness because you understand their biggest pain points? If you're clear about that and you're actually talking to customers and you're talking to prospective customers, there's so much value in research. There's so much value in surveys when it comes down to messaging. And so making sure that your messaging is tight, and it, again, goes back. So like in Bryan's example, he was talking about the landing pages, the website, and how everything was, those are all tactics. Those are all tactics. And if you were to take a step back and say, who am I building this for? It's your personas. And you can have unique landing pages for different personas. And you can have a website that encompasses your brand house. But if you wanna drive traffic to certain web properties and have them convert, you really have to be speaking to your people, and then understanding, how do they like to consume content? Are they readers? Do they like videos? Do they want to listen to something? How are you delivering this to them? How much time do they have? I mean, 94% of people will not go below the fold of your website. So if you're not putting the right stuff above the fold, they're going to leave without having done what you want them to do. So focusing there with the right feedback, and then what tools are you using? So, are you really getting the information you need? One very useful tip here. Most people, if you're measuring, that's really important. If you're not, you got to measure. And so there's quantity and then there's quality. So on the quantity side, it's Google Analytics, right? Like understanding your numbers and source. Where are these people coming from? And then beyond that, it's qualitative. Are you using site recording tools like Hotjar or Inspectlet to understand what people are doing when they get to your site? Where are they clicking? Are they getting frustrated with something? Are they navigating because they're lost? That's qualitative information that you need to be capturing. These are things, again, starting with your persona in mind. And then one of the best ways to test your persona is to put ads out to that particular persona, honing in on them, and then seeing what they do when they get to your site. And this is literally like in 1 week, you could get so much information and make tweaks based off of qualitative and quantitative data. That's all very accessible. And guess what? What I'm saying to you, if it sounds really great, but you're like, I have no idea how to even do this. That's why companies like Bryan's and mine exist, is that everything is very algorithmic. There's a way to get a consistent result time after time. And that's why we're here, right? To help you get it done. And so anyway, I'll leave it at that. That's kind of one example of just kind of taking something like like conversion optimization and really leveraging quantitative and qualitative tools to get results.
No, I appreciate that. You triggered actually quite a few projects in my mind of just like, we get that question a lot of like, where do I start and where do I even go to get this information? There's like the basic things that people think about of like, well, just talk to your patients. But even simpler things that like people are shocked at what's publicly available. Like we would scrape and go into like health forums, Reddit threads, and you'd be shocked. And I'm thinking of one where we did an interesting research with a children's colorectal department where like they use the word child and children everywhere as like the identifier of who is having a problem. And everywhere we went, the entire community, no one labeled as the child. It was my son, my daughter, warrior. And we were like, you literally are just disconnecting with speaking to your intended audience by limiting the label of that patient as just a child. And there's just like really simple ways to think about like, you may not even have to do a heavy lift and do some kind of sampling. And you made me another one too. I'd be curious if you have more data or examples around, you made a point of, well, be critical on the content or the medium, where we had an interesting aha with that, with a really sensitive sexual health problem, where the men of the scenario really wanted to consume all the content passively. So we took a lot of the written word and turned them into video or audio because they were much more judgmental of themselves, that they didn't want to be seen consuming that information because it was so sensitive and personal to them.
I love your creative approach, and the information is everywhere. So the Reddit forums and how you turned it into the channel types that consumers prefer. This really matters in a big way.
No, I appreciate that. It's a fun. I mean, people think, to your point, like you've talked about this a lot. It's like, oh, email doesn't work. It's because you're thinking so single tracked, where you have to be able to communicate with people in many different ways, in many different forms, and repetitively as well.
Yeah, that's spot on. And like, I think one of the fun things that you reminded me of, Bryan, in sort of meeting people where they're at, is that at the end of the day, that's what we're doing. Like we're connecting with other human beings. So like, if your marketing is effective, forget about marketing. Like, you're dealing with people. How are you connecting with them? Are you resonating with them? This example is so spot on of giving people the videos, right? Because that's how they want to consume it.
Yeah, I'm sure you have similar stories. Like, I forget it sometimes and have to be reminded that like we're in healthcare. I remember a recent hire we had, and she was just like, I just can't sell shoes to people in the Hamptons anymore. She was like, I want to feel the purpose of what I'm doing behind this computer or behind this work. And now we see that we're connecting people with physical care. I mean, that was funny. It's another unlock example of, I think, what you're leading towards was, we had this really like interesting unstructured data around women that were suffering from like endometriosis and all these other areas. And there's a thread of like all their inquiries talked about being in extreme pain for multiple years and not being listened to by other medical professionals. That became a complete lens in how they talked about themselves, what went into the ad copy, how even the liaison talked to referring providers. Like, that's really an example of like meeting your customer where they are and saying, hey, I hear you, you're in pain and you feel like you're lost in the medical system.
Wow. That's another great example. And that's, and when you're lost in the tactics, you're not doing these things that Bryan just mentioned. And if you're able to just take a step back and think about your strategy, which includes your brand, your personas, you could go really deep on some of these things and then become super effective. So I think that's powerful, man. You're doing some really powerful work.
No, equally. I knew I was excited to get on this call. I was like, it's always fun to geek out with marketing, and then the subset of healthcare marketing gets smaller. So I was like, this is going to be fun.
Yeah, for sure. This has been fun.
If people want to reach out to you individually, learn more about your company, and in kind of best formats, ways that for people to connect with you.
Yeah. Hey, Bryan, thanks again. This has been a lot of fun. Look, what best way to get in touch with us is our website. And again, I'll share this again. If you're a business doing more than $1 million, or if you've raised more than 5 million, outcomesrocket.com/grow is where we have a 20-minute blueprint session on how you could get more customers on any of the things that we talked about today. I'm happy to spend some time with you. No commitment. If you're not there, just go there anyway. Outcomesrocket.com/grow. You'll see our media and press link there where we give our best stuff away to the media. We're always, sharing our best stuff. So go learn, be part of it. I remember being in the car. It was a Honda Civic hybrid. And at this point, I had done over 50 interviews and applied to over 50 jobs trying to get in the med device. And I was so prepared, man. Like I was doing research on all these folks, and I was leaving a job site at the time because I was doing this random sales job before I got into med device. And it was this guy, to this day, still a mentor of mine, Frank Russo. He says, hey, I got an opportunity for me. I knew exactly who he was, had a great conversation. 2 months later, I was flying from Chicago to Florida to start my new career in med device. And that's because I was ready. My strategy was clear. I was ready to strike when the iron was hot. And for anybody listening today, the question that I have for you is, will you be ready? Are you going to be ready when that big opportunity that you've been working so hard to get comes to your front door? And will that opportunity show up at your front door? And what I have to say to you is the best way to do that is to start with strategy, that brand, the personas that Bryan shared such great examples of, honing into their psychometrics. The best way to be ready is to prepare. And so if you're in the field that we work in, we invite that call. It's outcomesrocket.com/grow.
No, I appreciate that. And like consuming a lot of your media before this conversation, I love how transparent you are, saying, hey, here's the blueprint, here's the content, but then you also hold the edge of accountability to go like, there's nothing useful about just consuming this information. You need to then do something with it.
Amen to that. Let's do something with it.
All right, brother. I really appreciate the time. This was a blast, and I know we're definitely going to continue the conversation and the relationship.
Yeah, thanks, Bryan. Really appreciate the opportunity to be here with you and all your listeners and viewers.
Thanks for listening to Health Impressions. Subscribe on your favorite podcast platform so you never miss an episode. Leave a review to help us improve and connect with us on social media. Keep exploring, learning, and pushing boundaries. Tune in again soon.